The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by BAMSI.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Humanity First. My name is Peter Evers, the host of the show and the CEO of BAMSI. Today, I guess we're going to have a conversation about something that isn't too hopeful at the moment. We're in a government shutdown. We're, I think, a couple of days away from breaking the record that actually happened under the last Trump administration. You know, a lot of people say, well, what does that mean for you as an organization? And I think there's a great deal of trepidation about what that means. There are many, many people who we serve who are recipients of Medicaid, and Medicaid, as you probably have heard, is at risk. Many people, probably about 320,000 people, are at risk of losing their benefits over the next year. And so a lot of those services that we provide are paid through Medicaid. But specifically around the shutdown, there are a number of things that we worry about. And one of them is SNAP benefits. That's the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, and our WIC, which is Women, Infants and Children. So we're going to have Angela Brown, who is the director of our WIC program in Brockton, come and talk to us a little bit about what people can do. Because at the end of this week, if nothing else changes, the well will be dry for SNAP, and so monies that people rely on will not be available as of Saturday. The City of Brockton, the Mayor of Brockton, doing a great job in getting the word out about how we can help and how we can support people. But these are people who are at the poverty line. That's how they get these benefits. So not having them is going to make people have to make some very difficult choices. I would, and I'll say this a couple of times, but I would advise people to have a look at BAMSI.org and go to community, and there's a list of agencies that can help with food pantries and assistance, and also the Charity Guild is a great place to look to see what those helping agencies are, and the City of Brockton as well is putting up a list of resources as well. So stick around because Angela is wonderful, and she's going to talk about formula. She's going to talk about how we can continue to get really important nutritional food into the mouths of children. But remember, we're also talking about veterans here. We're talking about the disabled, and we're talking about the elderly, some of the most vulnerable people in our state. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm an essential worker here at BAMSI, and I'm a nurse. Nurses are essential here at BAMSI because as nurses, we really have the opportunity to make an impact. We have very small ratios, so we have the opportunity to really learn everything about the person served and be able to give the best care. It really serves such a great purpose for me as being a nurse, and really why I came into nursing. Learn more about nursing opportunities at bamsijobs.org.
Giving a voice to the voiceless, pulling stories out of the shadows and putting them under the spotlight, making sure that each person is valued and cared for. This is Humanity First with Peter Evers, presented by BAMSI.
Welcome back, everybody, to Humanity First. And as I promised at the top of the show, we have a great guest with us today. It's Angela Brown, who is our WIC program director. Angela, thank you so much for coming in again.
Thank you, Peter, for having me again.
Nice to see you. I would say it was about a year ago, so a lot's happened since then. And speaking of a lot happening, we're in, and I said this to somebody else the other day, they said something, we're in unprecedented times. And I said, can we not say unprecedented times? Because it sort of reminds me of COVID when everybody said that. But I suppose we are in different times. We have an administration in this country who is not a big fan of human services or the support that agencies like BAMSI give to people who don't have a lot, people who struggle financially. And one of the things that I think about is that, you know, when you're meeting your basic needs, you can begin to address some of those other things in your life. And food and shelter, of course, are the most important things for us. Yeah, your basic needs. Mm-hmm. But before we talk about the issue with SNAP, which I mentioned before in the program, you know, we're facing a drying up of the well, if you like, resources this Saturday for SNAP recipients. And there's a great deal of panic out there. When I was looking at the statistics, Maura Healy said yesterday that 1 million people are affected by this. 1 million people in our state, about 7 million people, are going to be affected by not having those resources on Saturday. Let's just look at the numbers. 32% of those are children, 30% of those are the elderly, and the rest of those people are disabled. And in that bunch of people, I'll just say, there are 20,000 veterans who will not be receiving. So when we think about the people that we must care for most, we think about children.
Of course.
We think about people who are disabled and vulnerable.
Elderly,
and the elderly. This is really critical. So we're going to talk a little bit about the WIC program and where the WIC program can come and sort of help with that, because you've got some really important information for people out there. So Angela, let's start. And you know, people probably don't know everything about WIC. Just tell us a little about WIC and how that fits into the array of services for families.
Sure. Again, thank you for having me, Peter. And it is, if you will, unprecedented times. But I think more so, not that we haven't been here before. We've never been in a governmental shutdown like this, but we have overcome different obstacles in different areas where we did come together. So I just want to start by just saying, let's be hopeful. Let's, band together. Let's continue to do what we do best in times of fear or times of almost chaos, if you will. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Again, WIC stands for Women, Infant, and Children, and we offer food benefits for families, pregnant women, children up until 5 years old. This also helps out with the infants because we do offer formula. But just, we're able to offer these benefits to families who are in the lower income. And we want to make sure that, eligibility is a big thing. So if we're talking about families that are lower income, they are usually, or eligible, I should say, for WIC through SNAP and through things like Mass Health. So these all kind of work together, these governmental assistance programs. And so WIC is here as a support and has always been here as a support to families. You said the 32% of children that are affected by this governmental shutdown, and now SNAP starting November 1st. So.
Yeah, just to remind people that SNAP used to be what people called food stamps, right? Which is the supplemental nutritional assistance program, right? So when you hear SNAP, it's not about your fingers going like that. It's about what that is and how much, when you think about it, it supports families in need. Talk a little bit about the intersection of WIC and SNAP when it comes to formula, because one of the things that I worry about a lot is babies getting the formula that they need, and some of them are very, very specific, aren't they, nutritionally, and some babies have very specific nutritional needs, which actually sometimes means that they can't be naturally breastfed, but they have to be on formula. So it's that. Sometimes you hear people go, well, why are they using formula? Why aren't they breastfeeding? How important is that formula for so many of the families that we support? And how can we help people get that formula in a time when SNAP is going to be suspended?
Yeah. So as you mentioned before, SNAP is, what formerly was the food stamps, if you will. And so when people think of WIC, Women, Infant, and Children, they sometimes correlate it with the formula providing company, and we've since come a long way from there. We do promote a lot of breastfeeding, but like you said before, we do have a very high population who do need the formula in specifics, for babies that are low birth weight or, not gaining adequately or even have allergies, right? So we have all kind of formula that we do offer, like Alimentum and Nutramigen, just to name a few. But if you Google these names of formulas, you would see how expensive they are. So there are a lot of families who solely rely on us.
Like how much?
How many people?
No, how much money are we talking about?
Oh my goodness, a can of like Nutramigen or Alimentum could cost a good $30.
And how long would that last?
And if the baby is not breastfed at all and just only having formula, and they're doing, say for instance, 3 to 4 to 5 ounces every 2 hours. One can, I think, does about 100 ounces. So that's not even a good 2 or 3 days, if you will.
Wow.
Yeah. So people and families rely on us very heavily. So I'm very grateful, I'm very happy that we are able to meet the need in that way. But just as we said before, that we've never experienced a governmental shutdown like this. We've experienced things like this when we had the formula shortage just within the WIC world. So we know how much of an impact it is on our families, and how much of a place we put them in just by mentioning that we might not be able to offer it. So just the idea of, not being able to rely on that resource, I think hits home very much so for families. It sends them into a space of unknown. And we all know that when it's unknown, it's an automatic creation for fear.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so when I was on the call the other day, when, Mayor Sullivan came together and brought us all together, I was just elated at the support that Brockton is able to offer in these times of needs. Again, we're banding together, and even though we've never been here specifically before, we know what it looks like, and we know how to come together and support the families.
You're absolutely right. I think humanity is humanity, and Massachusetts is a state that cares about its people, right? And always has done, and has always been a beacon of hope for those people who do feel that way, and feel that there is a collective responsibility in our communities to look after everybody. If you live in this state, you're a member of this state. Doesn't matter who you are. I was on that call as well, and just for everybody who knows, the mayor called a meeting yesterday, and there were probably
30 people,
30 or so
30
people, organizations who are saying, look, we're going to pull together. And I would refer you to BAMSI.org, our website, and go under community resources, because there's a list there of all of the services that people can get, and all of the agencies like Spoonfuls, who are wonderful, who can provide nutritional food, and also the other organization, which is called Too Good to Go, that you may have seen the adverts on. So there is a lot of help out there. It is going to be a scramble. And just by the way, the Greater Boston Food Bank today sent out an email to all of the users of that, and we are, because we do our food drive every 3 weeks that I've spoken about here before, and they're really putting an effort into getting more pallets of food for distribution. So fortunately, we'll have more food to distribute, because we know we have more people in need, and that makes me feel good.
I kind of heard that yesterday with people, when you have such a crisis, if you will, like emergency situation like we have, a lot of the resources are scared that they cannot, handle the great need that's now coming upon them. And now if they become, say, for instance, a resource that we're putting out there, can they now support the increase or influx, I should say. And so I'm glad to hear that the Greater Boston Food Bank is kind of meeting the need in that way, so that they're not strapped for providing the resources that they've been providing, but now being able to address some of the influx.
It is good. And one of the things is that the food bank, and we're in touch with them a lot, obviously, really had their federal funding cut 6 months ago. So we're not just dealing with an individual crisis of a shutdown here and federal funds not coming. We're actually, that's on the back of some of the reductions that we've already had, which in some ways, is a bit of a soothsayer about what's going to happen over the next year, because there's going to be many incidents like this. And I love your hope. And Harvey Milk said hope doesn't solve everything, but without hope.
And not to say that I do feel the squeeze.
Yeah,
we're being squeezed at all ends, all angles. So
So just by the numbers, how many people? And by the way, BAMSI has 2 WIC programs, and I'll say that. And Eugenia is the other director of the WIC program, which actually is in Quincy. And so, how many people do we serve in the WIC program?
Sure. So at the Brockton WIC program, our current caseload, I would say, is above 6,000, so about 6,400.
6,400.
Yep.
And how many do you think Quincy is?
I would think Quincy's just below. I would say their caseload's like 3,000.
About 3,000. So 10,000 families are served. And when you look at let's just go back to Brockton for a second. When you look at the people who are going to be not receiving, unless, by the way, there is an intervention, and there is actually, I read this morning, there is a vote on coming up on the floor to actually sustain funding for SNAP, so we can hope and pray for that. But at the same time, within the city of Brockton, talk a little bit about that. I think there are 40,000 people in the city of Brockton who are reliant on SNAP, right?
So I can't say for the city of Brockton, but for my program, Brockton is the main site, but we do have 4 different sites. We have 2 different sites at the Brockton Neighborhood Health Center and then one in Stoughton at the YMCA. Yeah. The main site on 795 Pleasant Street, we get a report monthly about how many of our active participants are also receiving SNAP benefits or also receiving like Mass Health and the differentiation between the standard or limited plus and things like that. So when I did the digging, out of our caseload, that's 6,400, about 15% of that population receives SNAP as well.
Yeah.
And some may think, that's not a lot, but that's a huge impact if, say, for instance, we weren't able to, say, qualify someone to receive WIC benefits by them having their SNAP benefits.
Right. So yeah, there's a double whammy there, and when we look at our other population, those people who are veterans, those people who are disabled, and the elderly, you're looking at. In fact, where does Brockton come in the state in terms of cities that are most vulnerable with the most people?
Yeah. So actually, my husband just sent me, something via, because if you look at social media, it's a really good hub for what's kind of going on. They say don't believe everything you see, but in this case, I think it's been giving us a lot of good resources. So basically, if we look at how many different Massachusetts towns are being affected by it, Springfield, it says 47.4%, Holyoke 43.3%, Lawrence, Southbridge, Fall River, New Bedford, and then here we are, Brockton, and they say Brockton is about 33.6%
of its residents
going to be affected by the SNAP.
A third of the population
going dark.
This is a true crisis if we can't resolve it, and that that, as you said before, the prospect of this is causing great anxiety for people. I saw somebody on the television yesterday saying, I've got to make some choices about what paying my rent. What if and if I can't pay my rent, I'm going to be evicted. And it's just a real shame that our politicians in Washington don't really understand the cities, the towns,
well,
and the
countryside. They really aren't the
this.
boots on the ground, Peter. Yeah. I think you know that. And if, they just took a walk in the shoes of a person, a daily walk, they would see how impactful these decisions that are being made is now affecting, more than just families, but mass numbers of families, like you said, those different categories.
Yeah.
I was speaking with my my family support coordinator, and she was basically saying how a participant that she was speaking with says, oh, yes, I'm grateful that we have a list of all the food pantries. So I'm using them now. I'm using them more. And she said when she goes to the different food pantries now, they're almost starting to ask, do you live in the town? Mm-hmm. So again, here we are with the whole squeeze on both sides of the resources that people are offering. Because they know there's an influx, they're going to have to find a way to kind of protect themselves a little bit, if you will.
Yeah.
We're doing the best we can to offer those services. We're even at the Brockton office, we're even starting to put together a food drive. Just the staff members, bringing in non-perishable items. And we've done this, for a while, but now more so, for the families that are in need, coming around the holidays, talking about Thanksgiving and things coming up. So we've put together some food bags for families that come in and that we need.
Yeah, and we're doing the same thing in BAMSI as well. And I would, if there's any employers and businesses, I would suggest that you do the same thing. And also, all of those food pantries, all of those organizations that belong to the Charity Guild, I would say, please donate cash to those organizations, because then they can turn that cash into nutritious food for people.
Cash, gift cards to grocery stores, all of those things are very helpful.
Yeah, all those things are really good because we can get that quickly into the hands of people who are really going to need support from Saturday, Sunday on if we don't come up with a solution. I love your sense of optimism. There's always something good that comes out of a bad situation. And I have to say, I've got to know a lot more people over the last few days sort of talking about this, getting the word out. We have to help those who need help, right? That is what we do. And it does strike a chord with American people. When I came to this country, I was really overwhelmed with the generosity of people. I didn't know anybody, and soon I had people that cared for me. And that's the spirit of America. It's not this idea of, I mean, you know, WIC is actually approved by the legislature, by the federal legislature every year. It's not a standing
you would think, right? It would be just something that is just automated, right? Because we're doing so well, and we feed so many people, and we meet the need, and even talking about food security. So, but, you know, when I look at it this way, Peter, a storm comes, right? And it washes away, or it winds away things that are weak, or things that cannot stand. But guess what is left?
Right.
The things that are meant to be there kind of shows you a little bit of what you're made of, if you will.
And those people are stronger because of it after that storm. Angela, thank you so much for coming in. There's so much more that we could talk about, but
before we end, though, I just want to say that, you know, to address these needs, the Commonwealth basically is just saying now that we can still offer WIC benefits through adjunctive eligibility. And what that means really is that if someone was active with their SNAP benefits before November 1st, we can still have them check their DTA connector app to make sure that they're active, not necessarily meaning any balance on there, but as long as they're considered active, they can be a recipient of WIC. They can enroll in the WIC program, which makes a huge difference.
Hugely important. So do you just go through that again?
Sure.
And is there information that you on a website that you can refer people to?
So you can always go to mass.gov and you can visit our website personally. Our website is just Google WIC BAMSI or WIC BAMSI at Brockton, and our website will come up, so you'll see all of that. But in order to apply for WIC, if you haven't recently, or if you haven't had WIC before, you are still eligible to receive benefits if you have a SNAP. And even after the shutdown, November 1st, you can still come in and show us your active status on your DTA connector app. And that will kind of streamline the income eligibility, so we don't have to ask for pay stubs or things like that. We'll just deem you eligible because you have an active status with SNAP.
And that's a huge thanks to the Commonwealth for agreeing to do that, because I know that comes at a price to them. Angela, thank you so much. These are difficult times, but you always sow a sense of optimism with us, which I really do appreciate.
Thank you again, Peter.
Thanks. Goodbye, everybody. See you next time.